This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears, with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for April 6, 2025. This is Season 14, Episode number 56, and Episode number 495 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining me here on a Sunday. This is the Power Play Post Show. I am your host, Bob Howard. Thank you very much for tuning in, listening. I just want to, really kind of start off by saying what a day in hockey. If you think about it, April 6th, 2025, the day that Alexander Ovechkin breaks the great ones, Wayne Gretzky's, goal record of .894. They were tied for about 24 hours, and then it didn't take long into the second period when he scored from the, top of the left circle and on the power play. A goal that you don't normally see Ovechkin score that often, but what a great moment. And then, of course, they stopped the game. They did a whole ceremony. That was a record that held for 31 years, since 1994. I remember watching the game when Wayne Gretzky broke Gordie Howe's record. What a phenomenal thing. And it was 31 years that Gordie Howe had held the record, right? So how kind of crazy is that it takes, 2 generations per player to be able to really have that record be broken. It's a very difficult, tough record. A lot of people said that nobody was going to break Wayne Gretzky's record of, .894, and now we have seen it. Is there a future NHLer playing right now that could break that record? It'll be very interesting to see. And you can have your arguments all day long between who's better, Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, or maybe even a guy who won't ever have the numbers, a Kovalchuk, someone like that. We won't know for a while whether or not anyone's ever going to come close to that. Will it be a Nathan McKinnon or any one of the new great players that are out there, Austin Matthews, whoever it might be? I don't know if we'll ever see a player like, Ovechkin again. And I when you look at all three of those players, right, Gordie Howe, who I think was as much of a physical presence on the ice as he was a goal scorer. Plus, he also played 40 some years, right? And then you look at like someone like Wayne Gretzky, who really liked to be behind the net and control the game from behind the net. It's one of the reasons why he has so many assists. He found people, and he was able to get the puck to people who could score in such a way that no one's ever really been able to do that. And Ovechkin is definitely not a guy who plays behind the net and plays that style. But it is, so you can take a look at all three of those guys, and they played the game differently, but they also had the same dedication, love, and just the way they put it all together. That's very much the same. The respect for the game, the love for the game, the dedication, the hard work that they put in, all very similar, even though their playing styles, all three of them are completely different. But, when you start to look at the Mount Rushmores of hockey, Gordie Howe, Alexander Ovechkin, the great one, and then the fourth, there's a lot of different names you could put in there. You could find a goaltender that you think is good enough to be in there. Maybe there's a lot of ways you can go with that. I am going to talk about, obviously, in a little bit, about the Athens Rock Lobsters. I do want to say that, Binghamton having these 2 days off, I have not been in contact with any of the players. I haven't been in contact with Brant Sherwood. I hope they've all kind of been enjoying their weekend off. I hope they have a long weekend, too, where they don't come back to practice, because usually they don't start practice for the Black Bears until Tuesday. I hope they're all just kind of enjoying some time away from the rink and time away from just hockey, and because it's a great way to clear your mind a little bit. However, it is an 8-day off, kind of thing. So there's some healing that can happen, which is great. All the guys, their bodies need some time to heal. And because at this point of the season, most players are playing with some sort of nagging something. It's just the way it is. On all teams, with most players, it doesn't matter how good or bad you are. So I hope they're enjoying the time off. I hope to speak with Brant probably within the next day or two, just to check in with him. And also, I'm going to be at practice on Wednesday. I have the day off, and I'm going to be going down there, probably take my gear down there, do some recording, get some new interviews recorded with people, maybe get some words in with Coach Sherwood as well. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be great to go down there and get that taken care of, and just see how practice is going, and maybe talk to a few people, even if it's off the air as well. It's going to be great. Obviously, on Friday, against the Danbury Hat-Tricks. We were there in Danbury, obviously, for the Ring of Honor ceremony. Well, Binghamton is going to be hosting the Danbury Hat-Tricks with our Hall of Fame ceremony. And, of course, Jason Spezza is going to be inducted, and he's right now working for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins as the general manager. He will be inducted into the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame. And then, of course, Dieter Kocken, who is obviously the goaltender who most famously went from the UHL directly up to the NHL. That's kind of like going from the ECHL up to the NHL. And I don't think the UHL was considered AA hockey, but it was pretty darn close at the time. And UHL had its good moments and it had its bad moments, I think, in general. But the Coast League definitely surpassed what the UHL was doing as a AA league. And it was very interesting because when Dieter got the call up, he basically signed a 2-year deal with Tampa Bay and got to go up there and to play. And one of the more interesting things about Dieter is that he gets the call up, he goes up there, he signs the contract on Monday, he plays his first game on Wednesday, and he gets basically put in, gives up 4 goals, gets pulled for Dan Cloutier, who played for the Binghamton Rangers just a few years beforehand. Gets pulled Dan Cloutier, who obviously has Binghamton ties. He goes in there, he gets injured, comes out, and then Dieter goes back in again. So it was very interesting how Dieter's first game in the NHL went and how it's still tied back to Binghamton. Again, I'm very proud of Binghamton hockey history and just the simple fact that there was a lot of people that have gone through Binghamton that have played in higher leagues and done great things. And, the Black Bears are creating a new legacy, a different legacy for obviously Binghamton hockey, with the fact that they're so dominant and playing so well here in the FPHL, which doesn't have an affiliation with the NHL. Unlike previous years with teams that had been here, there'd been affiliations, obviously, with the NHL, whether it be AHL related or even with the UHL, where there was movement, more serious movement between the UHL and the AHL, and then, of course, with Dieter going up straight to the NHL from the BC Icemen. The other BC Iceman that I always think about is Keith Coyne, right? He played, his first year of hockey was with the BC Icemen. He eventually won contracts and earned his contracts with the Hershey Bears, and then eventually played for the Washington Capitals. Great person. Got to interview him a bunch of times. especially at All-Star games. That was always kind of like our little running thing where I would, get 10, 15 minutes with him and talk to him. And he just appreciated his time in Broome County, in Binghamton, playing for the Icemen. So players definitely who played with the Icemen, they got these great jerseys. I think you guys have all seen the jerseys. We've all seen the commercials now. I think the one with Brooks Hill going into the sin bin is absolutely hilarious. I don't know whose idea that was, but it was great. The only thing that they did miss was potentially, but I think there's advertising, issues there. The whole Twizzler thing. I think, a lot of people were like, oh, where are the Twizzlers? Where are the Twizzlers? Great. Obviously, Don loves the Twizzlers, and the guys love the Twizzlers when they go into the box. But again, you have to consider this is going on YouTube, and you want to make sure that you do things the right way and not get in trouble with advertising or having something on there without permissions and all that stuff. So, but great commercial, loved it, funny. Nobody thinks they deserve to be in the sin bin, but that was great. I think it was Scott Romakers and of course Zach Sirota in the sin bin already. Great stuff. I hear there's more to come, so that's going to be very cool. But Friday night's going to be great. They got the Iceman jerseys. They're going to induct those guys into the Hall of Fame. I'm hoping they do the flaming stick thing. I think that would be pretty cool to have the flaming stick guy come out. I used to know the guy that did it for a little bit. His name is Tim Miller, hockey player, local hockey player himself, and he would come out with the stick. So that's pretty cool. And then of course Saturday is going to be the final game of the regular season, and that's going to be against the EC Venom. It should be a fun game. All the games, I think, against the EC Venom, even if they were blowout wins for the Black Bears or shutouts or whatever it might be, just really fun stuff. All right, let's get into this. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search Power Play Post Show. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And on this edition of the Power Play Post Show, our friend from the Fed League Flash, it is Gary Ryan. We'll talk about playoff scenarios and the standings with Gary at the end of the show. The Black Bears lose Game 1 in Athens by the score of 4-3. In the first period, no scoring in the first period as both teams played a physical game and the two teams seemed to be feeling each other out on the ice. Scratched on Wednesday night was Scott Romakers, Donald Oliveri, Emerson Emery, Anthony Bernardo, Nolan Egbert, Darian Benchik, Nicholas Poirier, Josh Fletcher, and Cam Cervonia. Of course, Josh and Cam obviously have the injuries. Troy Murray dropped his gloves and wanted Tyson Kirkby to go, but Kirkby didn't bite, at least not yet. But no penalties around the 4-minute mark. At the 5:07 mark of the first power play for the Black Bears, during the power play, Troy Murray again went after Kirkby, losing one of his gloves again. Just lost it, I don't know. Maybe it fell off. Black Bears get into penalty trouble and giving the Rock Lobsters a 5-on-3 look close to the midway of the first period. The Black Bears killed both penalties, though, which is great. The Rock Lobsters were good at drawing the Black Bears into interference calls with their speed and their size, which helps with those calls. Some big hits in this first period from both teams. Athens, like it's physical for sure. Black Bears are countering, though, and not letting themselves get pushed around. I would say the Black Bears had 3 grade A chances, and the Rock Lobsters, I think, 2 or 3 as well. The Black Bears are 0 for 2 on the man advantage, and the Rock Lobsters are 0 for 4. They had 4 chances versus the Black Bears 2. Shots on goal, Binghamton still always just outshoots people. They've only not outshot in games twice this year, and it was 2 games right in a row. Otherwise, the Black Bears, they just outshoot people. They may not win every single period, but they do outshoot people almost every single game. Actually, right now, of the 56 games, they have outshot people in 52 of the 54 that they've played. That's pretty crazy. That's a great number. Shots on goal, Binghamton 13. Rock Lobsters 9. Second period, the Rock Lobsters get on the score sheet first with a goal from Avery Smith, who scored at the 7:01 mark of the second period. Now, just 33 seconds later, not a good response from the Black Bears. At the 7:34 mark, Rock Lobsters make this a 2-0 game with a goal off the stick of Kason Gallant. Now, that was a turnover that turned on to a 2-on play. Gallant then scored on a 2-on-1 play as well, where he beat Black Bears netminder Connor McAnanum a glove side high with 8:13 left to go in the period. Now, coming into the second period, I was curious if the Rock Lobsters would continue to push the physicality. I believe they did. Also, whether or not the Black Bears would continue to get caught up in those though the referee's eyes with penalties being so lopsided towards the Black Bears. The Rock Lobsters did come out again and try to get into Black Bears to bite with some rough stuff. The Black Bears, I still fear, had the grade A chances so far in the game through the first 25 minutes. I believe they had the most. The Rock Lobsters scored 2 goals in the span of 33 seconds, and we will need to see what response from the Black Bears in the third period. The response from the Black Bears was 5 shots on goal, but none got past Lavillere. And then Gallant, a possible Rookie of the Year player, scored his second against the Black Bears. This has not been the Black Bears period without a doubt. The Rock Lobsters definitely flexed their skill offensively with Kason Gallant's 2 goals and an Avery Smith goal. I think the Rock Lobsters took over this game as soon as they scored their first goal. They just didn't let up and got 2 more, with Binghamton responding but not getting into the back of the net. At the end of the period, Shinkarik got an unsportsmanlike penalty for not leaving the ice and jarring with the Black Bears. You could see him doing the crying hand motion. Not even can you. It was a crying hand motion. He put his hand up to to his eyes like he was crying on video. Gallant then scored a 2-on-1 play where he beat Black Bears netminder Connor McAnanum a glove side high with 8:13 left to go in the period. I guess I should have hit scroll. The Black Bears will need to come out on the power play and score a man-up goal to get back into the game. Shots on goal, Binghamton 17, Rock Lobsters 12. Totals through 40 minutes was Binghamton 30 and Rock Lobsters 21. Okay, in the third period, with Carter Shinkarik in the penalty box for the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty from the second period, the Black Bears captain Tyson Kirkby gets the Black Bears on the board with a power play goal to start just 1:14 into the third period. Okay, now this is the beginning, realistically, of the Black Bears starting to figure out how to play against the Rock Lobsters. Now, if there's one thing that I will say is that if Binghamton loses a game, they don't normally lose the next game. They learn from defeat. It's the reason why they haven't lost 2 games in a row, consecutively this season. The Rock Lobsters took another 3-goal lead with Kason Gallant's hat-trick goal at the 9:27 mark of the third period, making this game 4-1. The Black Bears scored their second power play goal of the game with 1:57 left to go in the third period off the captain's stick again as Kirkby scored his second power play goal of the game. Then with the Black Bears again on the power play and pulled Connor McAnanum out just like they did with the first goal. With 2 minutes left, the Black Bears scored another power play goal, their third of the period, off the stick of Austin Thompson to make this a 4-3 game. Essentially, the Black Bears won the third period. They did everything that they needed to do except for stopping Kason Gallant on the one. Now, again, all of Kason's goals were essentially turnovers in the neutral zone that ended up being 2-on-1s or odd man rushes. That's really what it came down to. Again, the Black Bears started the period on the power play and score 1:14 in, but then the Black Bears take a slashing call. The power play goal by Tyson Kirkby was so important for the team, but the momentum did not go in the Black Bears' way with the Rock Lobsters right back into the power play. At one point, the Black Bears put Tosto on the line with Kirkby and Thompson trying to change things up, hoping for a spark. Kason Gallant has scored 3 goals on 3 2-on-1 sequences. The Black Bears have given up easily 6 or 7 2-on-1 chances to the Rock Lobsters, giving Gallant way too many opportunities, and really, honestly, too much space. The most important point in this game was the Black Bears' third period comeback. Do not fall out of your seat laughing here. This was a perfect loss to take for the Black Bears, and here's why. Number one, stop talking about 50 wins. It doesn't matter. 50 wins doesn't guarantee you a championship. It is better to lose this game here in the regular season than in 3 weeks in the playoffs. The comeback in the third period, no matter what the stats show, though I'm sure the Black Bears will be ranked first again on the power play, the Black Bears showed that a man up, they're the best team in the league. Heart. They never quit in the third period or game. They score. Athens then scored their fourth, but the Black Bears came back with 2 more goals. They will learn from their mistakes in this game. From the turnovers to the odd man rushes, the Black Bears will watch the video, discuss it, and get better. The fight they had in this game was great. Yes, the Rock Lobsters are good and skilled, but they saw what the Black Bears are truly made of in the third period. Tomorrow, on Thursday night, I think the game will be a different game, and it really was. I really said that it was going to be like that. Shots on goal, Binghamton 12, Athens Rock Lobsters 9, total of Binghamton 42 and the Rock Lobsters 30. Final score stats. Okay, Black Bears come back, falls short, loses 4-3 in Athens. Tyson Kirkby scored his 34th, 35th goals of the season, which was also his 11th and 12th power play goals, and had an assist for a 3-point night. Austin Thompson scored a power play goal. Gavin Yates had 2 assists on the night, insisting on both the late power play goals in the third period. Actually, they changed that. So Gavin Yates only assisted on 1. They gave Austin Thompson another assist, I think on Kirkby's second goal. Connor McAnanama saved 26 of 30 shots in the loss and now has a record of 29-3-1. The Black Bears and the Rock Lobsters have a quick turnaround and, of course, played on Thursday night. All right, the Black Bears come back on Thursday and defeat the Rock Lobsters 4-1. This was a completely different game. In the first period, the Black Bears scored the game's first goal early with a Gavin Yates shot beating William Lavilliere on the second shot of the game, giving the visiting team a 1-0 lead, just 1:17 into the game. With the captain Tyson Kirkby in the penalty box for slashing, Austin Thompson stole the puck from the Rock Lobsters in the neutral zone and sent a beautiful pass to Blake Tosto, who scored after sending his own rebound shot past the Rock Lobsters netminder Lavilliere with 36 seconds left to go in the game. And, it was just Tosto was in the right place at the right time. Thompson gets the puck, sends it to him. And just really what comes down to is Blake Tosto just never gave up on that goal. He takes the shot, the save was made, the rebound was right on his stick, and he was able to just send that quickly past him. In no hesitation. That's important. Scratched on Thursday night was Donald Oliveri, Emerson Emery, Nolan Egbert, Chris Mott, Anthony Bernardo, Darian Benchik, Luke Dobles, who was replaced by Nick Poirier, with Josh Fletcher and Cam Cervoni both on the IR list. Brent Sherwood was back behind the bench. Josh Fletcher is playing assistant coach role tonight. Great start for the Black Bears as they win the faceoff and then control the puck until Yates gets his 20th goal of the season. Even after the goal, the Rock Lobsters got a little feisty with the Black Bears. This created a scrum, and the Black Bears came out with a power play. But even better, Garrett Milan was assessed a 10-minute misconduct, so was Dan Weber. Keeping him off the ice for a full 10 minutes is big. Of course, Weeb's got also the 2-minute as well to match and the 10-minute misconduct to match as well. But I think that's a good trade-off, and it really was. The Black Bears have done a great job in the first 10 minutes limiting the chances for the Rock Lobsters. Michael Greco has gone after the Black Bears players a couple times in the first period. What a play by Austin Thompson in the neutral zone. Steal the puck, send it down to Tosto for a shorthanded goal. An excellent period for the Black Bears. It really was. That's how you wanted to start off the game. Plus, shots on goal, Binghamton 19, Rock Lobsters 10. In the second period, the Rock Lobsters responded in the second period after a Dan Weber penalty expired with a goal from Garrett Milan at the 3:16 mark of the period, making this a 2-1 Black Bears lead. Okay? Now, after Weber's penalty, he came out of the box and went into the offensive zone with Kirkby, and the Rock Lobsters were able to recover and come back to score their first goal of the game. So there was a sequence where basically he comes out of the penalty box, and it was him and Kirkby down in front of the Rock Lobsters netminder. That then, after they missed the shot or the save was made, they go back the other way, and that's when the goal was scored. This has been an interesting period. With 5 minutes left to go, we have seen some physicality play by both teams in a fight between Virgil and Kirkby. Kirkby finally dropped against Virgil. I would say the Rock Lobsters have played well in this period. There was a play where Milan was hit by Dakota Bond, and then Greco went after Bond. Bond left the ice, getting an illegal check to the head penalty initially. Likely, I felt a suspension was coming. Now, I will say this. Bond is about 10 feet taller than the player that he hit. But as the player coming in to make the hit, hold the responsibility on the hit. However, there are rules in place where if the player, like Milan, who put himself into a really bad position, the league is going to consider that and make alterations to the penalty if need be. That is eventually what happened, right? As we all saw, Milan put his head down and kind of put it in a position where he was going to get hit. I think Dakota was going in trying to do a legal hit, and I think if he was hitting almost anybody else on the ice other than Milan, it probably wouldn't look as bad. Now, the league did switch it from an illegal check to the head to a slashing major. So they took out the match penalty, which is usually an intent to injure type of realm, right? And they put it to a slashing major. I think it was elbowing major. They moved it to an elbowing major, and of course that deemed just a 1-game suspension. So Dakota Bond will be out on Friday's game. But let's do this. Can I ask a question? How many times will a stick be knocked out of the Black Bears' hands before they call a penalty on it? That is something that I noticed in this game. They were knocking sticks out of the Black Bears' hands so much and no calls on that. It's unfortunate. And I don't call out the referees that often. First period was good for the Black Bears. Second period was no, in my opinion, right? I think that the Black Bears played well in the first period, not the same in the second period. Shots on goal, Binghamton 11, Rock Lobsters 17. Black Bears had a 30-27 shots on goal advantage through the first 40 minutes. In the third period, late in the final period with 2:36 left to go, Austin Thompson scores his 35th goal of the season, giving the Black Bears a 3-1 lead. Then just 52 seconds later, with the net empty, Thompson scored his second goal of the game, an empty netter, putting the Black Bears up 4-1. And before I get to the end of this game or to my final thoughts on this game, Thompson has now scored 7 goals in the last 4 games. He's really taken some of the offense onto his shoulders the last 4 games. But this is something that Austin has done a lot this season, where he will score in bunches in 2 or 3 games, then he goes 2 or 3 or 4 games without scoring. But in the last 4 games, 7 goals from Austin Thompson, which is pretty awesome. All right, the Black Bears did kill the 5-minute match penalty on Dakota Bond. The third period was less penalty-filled than the second period, a more calmer period for sure. The Rock Lobsters had 11 shots in the period, a few grade A chances, but they were not able to crack C.J. Happard. Happard played great. This was a great comeback win after the loss on Wednesday, though that started in the third period of the Wednesday game. The Black Bears now have at least 1 win against every single Continental Division team. They are 9-2 against teams in the Continental Division. So, even if you make the argument that the Continental Division is more competitive, the Black Bears have beat every single team in the Continental Division that they've played against this year. Best game yet for C.J. Happard, who improved to 3-0-0, has a .268 goals against average and a .906 save percentage. He saved 37 of 38 shots in Thursday's game. The Black Bears improved to 47-6-1 with 137 points. The Black Bears will have 8 days off before playing the remaining 2 games at the arena against the Danbury Hat-Tricks and then the HC Venom. Shots on goal in the third period was 14 for Binghamton, 11 for Athens, total of 44 for Binghamton and 38 for Athens. I thought they won 4 of the 6 periods, hands down. Final score graphic notes. Let's see here. The Black Bears play Spoilers in Athens, win 4-1. That was the Athens final home game of the season, and the Black Bears won it. Gavin Yates scored his 20th goal of the season, giving the Black Bears the early first period lead in the game. Thompson scored his 35th, 36 goals of the season, and added an assist for 3 points. Blake Tosto scored the game-winning goal, his 5th goal of the season, and more importantly, played in his 15th game of the season, is now eligible for the playoffs, and that was his second shorthanded goal as well. Both C.J. Stubbs and Tyson Kirby had assisted on 2 goals each. Happard, again, 3 wins, saving 37 of 38 shots. Black Bears improved to 47-6-1 with 137 points. Black Bears, again, off until Friday when they play against the Danbury Hat-Tricks. All right, so before we get to Gary Ryan, let's take a quick rundown. As I mentioned before, I would do this with the standings. I'm going to refresh my screen. In the Continental Division, with Carolina winning both games this weekend against the Port Huron Prowlers, which were pretty crazy games. If you haven't watched, you need to go back and check out the highlights. Carolina now has 119 points versus Athens 118 points. They both have 2 games left to play this upcoming weekend. So the winner of the division probably will not be decided until either Friday or Saturday there. Columbus holds down third place in the Continental Division with 97 points. Wytheville and Blue Ridge and Baton Rouge both are in the play-in game. Right now, Blue Ridge has 86 points, and they are in the kind of lead for that at the moment. Baton Rouge has 83 points. Now, there is a game being played. Baton Rouge did win the game 6-5 today. Okay, let me see if that's a final. It is a final. They won it in regulation, so the standings do hold true right now. Baton Rouge has 3 games left. Blue Ridge has 2. I think it's going to come down. We don't know who's going to have home ice advantage in that playing game, but that is really the important part of the standings there. Now, in the Empire Division, the Black Bears have 137 points. Danbury is solidly in second place. They're not moving from there with 99 points. Port Huron, who lost both games this weekend to the Carolina Thunderbirds, sit at 90 points. Watertown is more than likely going to be in 4th place. I don't think there's any change in that. They're not going to catch Port Huron, and they're not going to be caught by Motor City. That's they have 82 points in 4th place. Motor City right now has 53 points. I don't see HC Venom catching up to them. They only have 3 games left to play on the schedule. They do have a gap of 2 games that they couldn't make up. Columbus is going to end 2 games short as well. So you're going to have 2 teams this year that are going to play only 54 games instead of 56 games. How it'll affect everything, we won't really know until the end of next weekend, and whether or not they're going to have to play one of those games. I don't see HC Venom really having a chance here. So I don't think it really is going to matter. I think the Black Bears are going to win their final game anyways against HC Venom, and I think that'll just knock it out anyways. It's not going to affect Columbus to play 2 less games in the Continental Division. And I don't think they really would have to go to the points percentage or the winning percentage, just because everybody's going to be solid where they are. There's going to be no worries of having to make that change. So that's pretty much it for me. Again, I did want to mention that as well. Connor McAnanima this past weekend played in his not in the weekend, during the midweek, played in his 60th game. Okay, he is 48-6-5 in his career. He's the number one goalie in franchise history for the Black Bears. He also owns the best save percentage with 921, and I think he's got goals against as well, 222. At some point, what you do is you don't really include some of the guys who only played 1 or 2 games for the team. You start looking at it. I look at Sam Levici and higher. Right, Sam has got 12 games played and about 643 minutes. That's where I start looking at who's the franchise leader, right? Because you got to have some sort of limit there. And but Connor and Nolan are number 1 and 2. They've both played in 100 games combined because Nolan Egbert's played in 40 games himself. Which is pretty impressive. I do the actual games played of actually games that they were actually in and played versus what the FPHL does, which if you look at that, it's like Connor McAnana is dressed for almost 100 games. But in actuality, he's only played in 60 games. Nolan's played in 40 games. Owen Liskowitz, who's third in franchise, is got 37. So either way, I wanted to throw that out there, which is pretty cool. And then also, if I pull up the top 5, if you go to binghamtonhockey.net and you go to the Black Bears and you start looking through some of the drop-down menus, you're going to find this. Kirkby owns every single category now, including penalty minutes. So he's got penalty minutes, he's got points, he's got assists, goals, and games played. He is the top in every single one of those categories now. Some of the guys that are starting to really move up is Austin Thompson. He's got 182 points. He's now 4th in franchise history. Same thing with assists. He's got 90, which is 4th in franchise history. He's 3rd in goals with 92. He's only 8 goals away from scoring his 100th goal in the regular season, so that's pretty interesting. Thompson is also, let's see here, 3rd. Well, he's actually tied with Gavin Yates for games played with 157. So there's a lot of great numbers out there, which is pretty cool. But Tyson now owns all of those records, which is good for him. And we'll see what happens. Do I think Tyson's going to win MVP this year? Probably not. I mean, he does have 2.1 points per game. It's one of the best out there, but I think Garrett Milan is probably going to creep over the 100-point list, and it's hard to argue against that. He's had a great season for Athens, and I think that's going to be your MVP for sure. Connor McAnana is in good running to possibly win goaltender of the year, though. So we'll see what the league decides on from there. All right, so coming up next here on the Power Play Post Show, he's our good friend from the Fed League Flash. It's Gary Ryan. We'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
You're listening to the Power Play Post Show. Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. As I promised, I wanted to bring him on to kind of talk about the playoff scenarios, but unfortunately, there was a certain Alexander Ovechkin who kind of got in the way of that this afternoon. It is Sunday, 2 o'clock. It's actually about 2:18 right now as Gary and I are just about to record. And about 10 minutes before 2 o'clock, Alexander Ovechkin broke the all-time goals record that was held by the great one, of course. And so, Gary, welcome to the show. It's always great to have you on. He is Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash. I want to make sure I get the proper introductions in there. Gary, thank you very much for delaying the start of our recording time due to the fact that I wanted to watch the ceremony. And I was really impressed by, first of all, how gracious Wayne Gretzky has been throughout this whole process, right?
Oh, yeah.
A little backstory about Wayne Gretzky. His favorite player was Gordie Howe, and then he goes and beats Gordie Howe's 801 goals record 31 years ago. And he's just been so gracious. What an ambassador for hockey Wayne Gretzky has. Your thoughts on him?
Oh, it's neat. I was watching some video this morning, and one of the videos that I watched, the reporters are talking with Gretzky, and he so vividly remembers how he felt right before breaking the record, that Gordie Howe had held. And just the mixture of emotions, at one point, at one side, he's like, okay, this is great, I can do this. But then he's like, Gordie Howe, I've looked up to him my whole life.
That was his hero.
I'm almost afraid to touch this,
Yeah. It was his hero. I mean, he talks about that was his hero. And I think for a lot of hockey players after Gretzky, guys who, I mean, like you and I talked a little bit beforehand, and like Gretzky wasn't our favorite player, right? But we respect everything that he's kind of accomplished and did. I mean, no one's going to touch what he did assist-wise and 200 points and, 3 straight seasons. There's so many records they're not going to touch. But there were kids that grew up that loved Wayne Gretzky, that was their favorite player. And, it's just crazy how gracious he's been through this whole process. And realistically, you don't have to like Alexander Ovechkin. You could be a Sidney Crosby fan, right? Because there's always been that battle between Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky. Yet, you can really respect what he's done and how he's played the game. Yeah.
Think about all the great players we've had the privilege to watch play over the last 30, 40 years. I mean, you can go through just a gigantic laundry list, and even for players that didn't set some kind of record, we still recognize these are really great players. I can't believe I get to watch this guy play.
Yeah, like Kovalchuk is like one of these great players that probably won't set any major records or whatever, but he was always considered like, well, you had Ovechkin, you had Sidney Crosby, and then you had Kovalchuk. And some people would argue Kovalchuk was a better player than both of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just great that whether we're talking about NHL or the Fed, being able to watch these guys play and to excel at what they do, it's so awesome. It just it's one of the things that I always appreciated as a fan.
Yeah.
And just being able to recognize, these guys have poured their whole lives into doing what they've done, and they're really good at it. And it's so awesome that you can witness that.
Well, two of the guys, you talk about the Fed, and obviously we talk about the Fed. We talk about obviously the FPHL, and obviously primarily on this show we talk about obviously the Binghamton Black Bears, but Justin Bronson and Justin Barr this weekend also got recognized for just everything that they've done in their hockey careers. And, of course, we're not talking about the same numbers as we would be with Ovechkin or the Wayne Gretzky, but these are guys who are playing the game who recognize and probably grew up watching both of these players, Ovechkin and Gretzky to a degree, because I'm sure Gretzky is probably a little bit too old for them guys to really know. But because of Gretzky, these guys, there was this prolonged love for the game that happened within families and hockey communities, whether it be in America or in Canada or across the world. But these two guys also have been recognized this weekend by their Fed teams. Can you talk a little bit about what you think the impact of Justin Bronson and Justin Barr are on the hockey world?
Well, Bronson, I mean, just looking at the pure statistics, he's the third leading goal scorer all time in the Fed's history. And when you only play 50, 55 games a year, that's quite an accomplishment for how long he's been at it. And he's also been an ambassador for the Fed, kind of like how Gretzky's a great ambassador for the NHL. Justin Barr and Bronson have both been great ambassadors for the FPHL. So their impact goes a lot farther than just what they do on the ice. Them reaching out into their local communities and interacting with people. That's what makes them so important to the league and to the game.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, the Dashers fans, if you didn't notice it, the Dashers did win last night. They got, I think it was an 8-7 shootout win, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 7-6.
7-6. However, relating it back to Binghamton a little bit, Andrew Utero had 5 assists in the game. How crazy was that, Gary?
Yeah, that is awesome. And I am so happy for Utes. He was kind of stuck at Blue Ridge for the longest time. He wasn't getting the playing time he wanted. You talked to him a couple weeks ago, and now he's able to go to a place where he's regularly in one of the top 2 lines.
Yeah.
And playing regular minutes, and he's thriving there. It's awesome to see.
All right. I've got the standings up in front of me. We have obviously some scenarios still to kind of work out with only really one day this weekend and then next weekend to kind of resolve all this before the playoffs are supposed to start, which is a little bit of chaotic because we don't really know when the playing games are going to be and whatnot, which is fine. But let's talk about the Continental Division first, okay? Because it seems to be a little bit more established of what's going on there. Every team in the Continental Divisions played at least 52 games or more. Columbus has played 52, and Baton Rouge has played 52, where the 3 other teams that are really involved in the playoffs have played 54 games. Now, Columbus may only play just 2 more games because of obviously a scheduling thing. But what's interesting is that Carolina and Athens are really going to battle it until probably the end of next weekend to figure out who's going to be the number 1 team and win that division.
Yep. Math would dictate that the only way it doesn't go until Saturday, like the only way it gets settled on Friday, is if Carolina wins and Athens loses on that day.
Then they would have a 4-point lead going into Saturday's game.
Otherwise, it's going right down to the last game. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and obviously Binghamton has played both of those teams, lost the first game in Athens, I think lost the first 40 minutes in Athens, and then won the next, whatever it is, 100 minutes of the game, right? So they of basically of those 2 games, right? They lost the first 40 minutes, but then they won the next 4 periods. And so Binghamton has proved that they could beat Carolina. They can beat Athens. The question is, who's better between these 2 teams, Carolina or Athens?
That's a tough question. I mean, they're both built for the playoffs. Both Coach Harrison and Coach Martinson built their teams specifically for playoff success. But they play different types of games. Athens is a little bit bigger. They play more of a finesse game, whereas Carolina likes to play more of a speed and skill game. So it's different styles. It's kind of comparing apples to oranges. I think the Black Bears match up against the Thunderbirds a little bit better. It's such a shame we had such a small sample size.
Yeah, just 3 games between those 2 teams that the Black Bears got to play, 2 against Athens, 1 against Carolina. It's not enough, but that 1 game against Carolina, 1-0, Austin Thompson from the slot. It was a great game overall, very high intensity. I think a lot of people had a lot of nerves during that game. Yeah, and that was one. That was one of the cleanest games we've seen played this year too. Yeah,
which was really nice. It was really nice to see. Okay, here's a couple of the top teams in the league, and they don't have to mess around with all the nonsense. They can just go out and play their game and have success.
Now you talk about nonsense, and we'll talk about Port Huron in just a few minutes because when we get to the Empire Division, because I don't think the nonsense has failed Port Huron, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Columbus is in third place. They can't make second place. They're probably not going to lose. They're not going to lose third place, so they're the only ones kind of like in the division, kind of going, all right, let's see here, what's Athens going to do? What's Carolina going to do? So they're kind of like watching. They can almost fine tune their game this upcoming weekend, which is interesting. And then I think just happened this weekend, Wytheville and Baton Rouge. Basically, that's the wild card, and realistically, what it comes down to is, Baton Rouge has 4 games left. Are they going to be the 4 seed, or are they going to be the 5 seed?
Yeah, exactly. Blue Ridge can solve that by winning both of their games against the Dashers next week. If they do that, they have the 4th seed clinched, and then they host that game.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting, and then obviously Blue Ridge would have to travel down to Baton Rouge. That scenario is always one of those, like, okay, if you give me a 3-game series after a travel like that, okay, fine, you have a chance. It's so hard to travel that far, that distance, and then come out with your best game. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them.
Yeah, indeed. Baton Rouge kind of has a little bit of a disadvantage at this point because they've got to play 3 games next week, and then a play-in game whenever it's scheduled, probably earlier in the week.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, but nothing's been finalized or set by the league yet. Obviously, they got to work with the arenas, figure out what's going to be best, and go from there. In the Empire Division, Binghamton obviously has held that spot. They've held basically the league spot for a few weeks now, right, with 137 points. 47 wins. I'm not going to talk about the stupid records or the 50-win thing. To me, it's annoying because the only reason why I say that is because I think the Black Bears players and the coaching staff and everybody's just thinking about prepare for the championship. They want, I know, people saying that says, oh, you're overlooking the first 2 rounds. No, they're going to go into each round and know they got to play shift by shift and so on and so forth. So I think it's just a matter of Binghamton has to, and they have been fine-tuning, people getting suspended or just trying to bring in the college rookies. Your thoughts on their preparation over the past few weeks and probably going into this last week?
I like how Coach Sherwood has approached things. Not being afraid to put the I don't like saying college kids, but for lack of a better term, putting them into the pressure situations because he knows that he may have to rely on them in the playoffs. God forbid something happens, you lose a couple players to injury or something like that. You've got to make sure that they're ready, and he's not afraid to take that risk. He looks at things and says, well, we might lose a regular season game, but the most important thing is getting these guys ready and getting them conditioned to play when I need them. I've loved that, and the kids have responded wonderfully as well, which is awesome to see. So I think that's a very big, important component to the preparation for the playoffs.
Were you surprised that Happard got the start in the Thursday game against the Rock Lobsters?
I was surprised, but I was thrilled. When I found out, I was like, oh, cool. And the human thought comes in. Yeah, I hope we don't lose this game, but I thought this is a prime opportunity for him to shine, and then he has his best game yet.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
That was awesome. It was good to see. A couple of years ago, we. We're all set with Riley McVeigh, and all of a sudden this Taylor Joseph kid comes in, and now let's throw him in. It's worked out well for the Black Bears.
Without a doubt. Okay, so Danbury also secured the number 2 spot in the Empire Division. They have 99 points. They have 2 games left to go. So they're really coming into this weekend as well, probably fine-tuning, or this upcoming weekend, kind of fine-tuning and whatnot. They probably have a good idea that they're going to be playing against the Port Huron Prowlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very likely. Well, it's definitely going to be either Watertown or Port Huron. I honestly don't see Watertown overtaking Port Huron.
It's 8 points right now.
Yeah, it's most likely that way, and that's going to be a really good and tight series because the 2 teams throughout the year they've played. I believe they played 8 times, and if I remember correctly, Danbury won 5 games, but they were all close.
Yeah.
They were all really competitive games.
And they're the only 2 teams in the league to have scored 2 victories over the Binghamton Black Bears. So that is interesting. So it's kind of good that they kind of beat up on each other a little bit before going into the second round of the playoffs. Whoever gets past that, you just know. I mean, because Port Huron, and I wanted to bring this up. I want to talk about this. They muck it up. They get in your face. They use their sticks. They use their bodies. They are a rough and tumble team that likes to play, a defensive game, right? They've only scored 198 goals. They've only given up 160. I think that the 160 has kind of gone up just a little bit from where it was just about a month ago. But they normally play a very tight defensive game, and they like to muck it. They like to muck it up. I mean, it's no surprise of what happened against Carolina. I know you weren't pleased with some of the stuff that came out of it, but I wasn't surprised. And I actually watched Saturday night's game with no Binghamton game. I just watched it as a fan, just someone just kind of observing maybe a potential second-round opponent for the Black Bears. And I just enjoyed the game. I thought it was very interesting and fun. Your thoughts on Port Huron's kind of muck-it-up kind of style of defensive play?
Well, the big thing is Port Huron knows who they are. They have their identity. They embrace it. If their position is, if people want to look at us as the bad boys, so be it. We'll wear that bad boy as label, fine. Yeah, but the thing is, are they successful in being able to goad their opponents into the same type of play?
Sure.
Because usually, if they can do that, they have a good amount of success.
Yeah. They won 9 games in a row before this past weekend. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and they found their offense. The last 15 games this year, they've really, really ramped up their offense. Actually, I could go back farther than that. The game in which they really found their offense was the 8-6 victory over Binghamton out in Port Huron.
Yeah.
And it seems like ever since then, that they've been able to generate the offense that they need while still playing their game, their tight defensive system. They haven't compromised that at all. So now it gives them a new dimension.
Mm-hmm. It does. At the beginning of the season, after the first 3-4 weeks, did you expect Watertown to be 4th in the division?
No. I unfortunately, the chaos that happened in November, that really messed with the team's chemistry and their identity. And they still have a lot of talent on the team. They can still score at a high rate, but they just seem to lose something defensively. The first 10 games of the year, not only were they scoring a ton of goals, but they were giving up almost nothing. And then it just seemed to kind of turn. And losing Declan Flanagan for as long as they did with the injury, that was a big part of it. Now he's back and healthy. But I still look at them as an inconsistent team. I mean, they've been pretty much 500 since their hot start.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because they had just so much talent, and then kind of like the wheels fell out from underneath the organization first, and then it really then started to trickle around and affect the actual team and the play on the ice as well, especially with losing so many players and some getting suspended, some getting moved, that type of thing. So really, for the Empire Division, I think it's going to be Motor City that is going to be in the playing game against Watertown. But at this point, HC Venom has found a way to kind of stick around. Even though they've lost their last three, Motor City hasn't helped themselves that much because they only earned 1 point in their last game. So it's one of those things where it's just going to take until the end of the season to figure this out, even though we pretty much know Watertown and Motor City are more than likely playing against each other in the playing game.
Yeah. Now, mind you, between us recording now and you posting this,
a little bit later,
it could be settled.
Yes.
The two teams, Motor City and the Dashers play this afternoon. If the Motor City Rockers win in overtime or in regulation, they're in.
Yeah, so by the time people listen to this, more than likely that is going to be settled and taken care of. What I have to ask you, we already said that the Danbury-Port Huron series in the first round kind of looks appealing. Like how is Danbury going to handle Port Huron's latest form? I don't want to say of aggression. It's really, more physical. I mean, they've really ramped up their physical play. How's Danbury going to handle that? Because Danbury doesn't play that game like they did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? It's a different team in Danbury right now.
No, Danbury plays very similar to the Black Bears in their overall game. They've got three lines, very good lines that they can roll. Defensively, the Binghamton Black Bears have a big advantage. Yeah. Just between those two teams, there's been a lot more defensive success by the Black Bears than the Hat Tricks, and I think that could be their weakness. Time will tell on that. I still think that's going to be a 3-game series between the Prowlers and the Hat Tricks.
If it ends up being Watertown and Motor City playing against each other, who do you think is going to win that play-in game?
I think Watertown. Motor City is still having just way too many problems with surrendering a lot of shots and not generating enough offense. They've had a rare game here or there where they can get 40 shots per game, but I mean, last night the shootout loss to the Dashers, they were outshot 50-31.
Wow.
To the seemingly worst team in the league.
Yeah.
So they're really having a lot of struggles on offense, even though on paper you look at their roster and they've got a lot of very talented players, but it just doesn't seem to be able to gel somehow.
Yeah. You have an interesting video. I want you to hype this up a little bit. You have an interesting video coming out on Tuesday that may be talking about the Dashers. Can you kind of preview to everybody a little bit about what you're going to be talking about?
Okay. Well, let's see. It's a long story, and we've got to make it short. So, everybody knows the Dashers have been struggling mightily, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. Sure. Barry Sofkin basically abandoned the team. They ended up. For most of the year, they've been ownerless. Now, a couple of people have come in to handle like the personnel decisions and things like that, and to make sure that eventually the players are paid. But
which I think is the confusion that people had with the whole Don Lewis. People thought Don Lewis was like owning the team. He came in to help, just help.
Yeah, basically he was the de facto GM.
Right.
But he was not an owner. He was not pouring his money into the team.
Right.
That actually ended up coming from the league. So anyway, the team's been searching for an owner. Now, to be perfectly blunt, if an owner is not found, they are done.
Yeah.
However, there has been interest the last few weeks. There was one prospective owner that came in 2 weeks ago and was looking at the team and decided that they weren't going to commit to this. So, that person went by the wayside. But in the meantime, 2 other people that I know of have stepped forward and expressed interest in possibly taking over the team and taking over ownership. If that happens before, realistically, I think you have to say April 30th, then the team can come back and start afresh and anew next year.
Yeah, and they need that. What they need is somebody to come in. Obviously, you have to have capital to run these things, right? So you have to have somebody, but also the initiative to not just try to run it with one person like Devin Dubnyk and in the front office. You have to have a little bit more than that.
Exactly.
Because you're not going to find a Matt Graham, right? Matt Graham does a little bit of everything for the Port Huron Prowlers. He's general manager. He's head coach. He's probably the main guy that goes out and sells advertising for the team. He does a little bit of everything. I have a lot of respect for what Matt Graham does. I wish he was just either a head coach or just a player, because I just, I've always had that thing about head coaches who play, but you have to give him, and you're not going to find that person unless it's Bronson. Unless you bring in Bronson and you say, listen, we want you to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and pay him well.
Right.
And I don't know if that can happen in the Dashers, because they're not drawing what Port Huron draws. Right.
It is a tough market, and a lot of that has to do with the economics of the community.
Yeah.
The Dashers, Danville has had a very, very tough time the last really decade. The population's been in decline, and the economy is really struggling. So it's a tough draw, and what makes it even tougher is sponsorships, getting sponsorships in.
However, that's so important.
The league has been able to, over the last month, they've been able to get some sponsorships for the remainder of this year. So that's been really good. That's a good positive sign for chances of the team coming back next year.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Obviously, so Tuesday, YouTube, you're going to talk a little bit more about that, probably give a couple other details that you're not giving out here, which is absolutely fine. Gary, how are you ramping up for the playoffs? What is the Fed League Flash Audio Network / YouTube going to look like going into the playoffs? Are you changing anything? Or I know the power rankings are done, but what types of things are you ramping up for going into the playoffs?
It's actually going to be a little bit easier for me because it's fewer games.
Which is good.
You don't have 7 games a night.
Yep.
But so that helps. But I'm still kind of trying to keep an ear and eye on things for preparation for next year. The silly season starts.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of things, kind of focusing more on that, but also, trying to keep up to date with what's going on with the teams that are actively in the playoffs and continuing in their season. But yeah, it's going to start ramping down as we go week by week through the playoffs. I'm probably not going to be doing things every day. It'll probably be more like 4 or at most 5 days per week. By the time we get to the finals, I'll probably be doing 3 days a week. Then I'm going to be taking a break for a little bit. Once the teams do their protected lists, for the expansion draft, I'm going to pretty much take a couple weeks off, and then we'll get right back into it.
Well, you need your voice and your throat to kind of heal up from, obviously being sick and then still trying to talk every single day. People don't understand. I've been doing this for a very long time. Even before I started doing the hockey, I was doing the wrestling, the pro wrestling. And as soon as you get that cough, as soon as it happens, and then you try, you think, oh, I've rested it for the past 3 days, I should be good. And then you hit record, boom, it all goes downhill from there. I've been there. Trust me, I have. That's why during COVID, when they said I could wear a mask and go legally into a store without being arrested by a cop, I was like, absolutely, I'm going to do that. Because it honestly just helped with keeping my voice protected. And I know I just pissed off about half my audience when I said mask, but whatever. Get over it. It's my life, not yours. So buzz off. It's true, though. I mean, I don't care. Gary, thank you very much for coming on. It should be a fun ride to see how the playoffs, kind of all shape up. We obviously got about 5 or 6 more days before the weekend starts, and you get really a clearer picture of what's going to happen in the playoffs. Congratulations on everything you've done with the Fed League Flash. It's pretty outstanding how much you've built up and how many people are listening and watching. You do a great job.
And I appreciate everyone who has tuned in, and I try to express that as often as I can. I don't always remember to do that because of everything going on, but they are who makes everything happen, really.
I do it for the pay and the stardom. Yeah, it's amazing. The cash flow that just comes in from doing this show is just awesome. He is.
Have you bought into any Bitcoin yet? Or
no. I have like an array of Bentleys in the back and everything. So I just keep them. If you put enough Bentleys on the backyard, the grass stops growing, and then you're just rich and you don't have to mow your lawn.
There you go.
So that's kind of how it works. He is Gary Ryan, the Fed League Flash. You can listen to it pretty much every single day, and if he doesn't put something out, just go back and listen to something else. It's always there. Gary, thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you continue to do with the Binghamton Black Bears, with covering everything in the Fed that you do, and for giving me information from time to time. I deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely. He is Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash. I want to thank Gary for coming on the show and talking to us, obviously, about everything that's going on in the playoff races right now. The race to get into the playoffs. A lot of exciting stuff. And, honestly, the Fed has only gotten better in the last, I'd say, 3 years. Really, really, really much better. And that's a credit to some of the new coaches and some of the people that have come in to try to help make the league better. I think the one thing that obviously could always get better is the officiating, the referees. We can all agree on that. But again, how we react to the referees is also something that we can take ownership as well. Players, coaches, and of course fans as well, without a doubt. So this upcoming week, we'll have a show on Thursday. Might have a pretty big show, so I might leave my previewing of the 2 games coming up at a minimum. We know that Dakota Bond will be out, obviously, on Friday night due to his suspension for touching somebody, and what I mean is hitting Garrett Milan, because we could have some pretty good stuff coming up here on the Power Play Post Show, and I might save some of it for the Sunday broadcast as well. So that'll be pretty cool. Maybe hopefully get another one of the rookies on the show, either for Thursday or for Friday. Thursday or for Sunday, depending on how things work out on Wednesday. we'll definitely have to see. So with that being said, let's just finish this up. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for the Power Play Post Show. Check out BinghamtonHockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. Thank you to Rob Lepolis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director, and from the Fed League Flash, Gary Ryan. I am Bob Howard. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you again on Thursday right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.